What's up, guys? Today we're back here again with another episode trailer breakdown for American Horror Story 1984, the 100th episode of American Horror Story. And it really looks, based off the trailer that they gave us, that they're going to be laying on that whole concept pretty strong. With at least, from my perspective, kind of a nostalgic little montage with all the things that we've seen throughout the first 8 seasons of American Horror Story. As someone who's been watching this ever since the beginning on a weekly basis, I have to say I'm pretty impressed. I mean, we have literally come a very far way from Murder House, and with the quality of this season, if you've been watching my reviews and my thoughts on it, I mean, while I would say that it's not exactly where it was when it first began, it still has a lot of steam left in it, and I'm enjoying it thus far. But just so that we're on the same page before we start breaking down this trailer, why don't you watch that montage and tell me in the comments section what you think before listening to what I have to say. Okay, so kind of keeping this simple, I feel like it could be one of two things. One, this is just the 100th episode. They're trying to play up the nostalgic aspect of it, like I said at the very beginning. Or maybe because of how this season is playing out and all the connections that we're seeing between Camp Redwood and Murder House, what if this episode is really going to start sowing all the seeds to connect all the seasons for the very first time? Yes, we had that big crossover event last season, but this is a prequel to those events. And then they did kind of change history a little bit. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to play into any of this, or the broader story or connections between every single season. But what if this episode really starts to kind of connect everything? Not just the subtle connections that we've seen ever since Freak Show, but really starts to put together all the seasons that we've seen thus far and laying the groundwork for what will be potentially the last season with season 10. Anyway, enough with that speculation. We could talk about that another time. Let's jump into what we're really going to be seeing in this episode.
You want to see the sights? Let's party.
So it looks like we have the Night Stalker taking out a woman in what appears to be a hotel room. The one thing that we don't see here that I'm kind of a little bit shocked about is we don't see Mr. Jingles. After everything that they did in last night's episode with Satan bringing back Mr. Jingles and the two of them riding off together, I would be the first one to say that I want to see a little bit more of them. Them just kind of laughing as they drove off into the sunset in the stolen cop car, talking about wearing seatbelts despite the fact that they can literally come back from the dead, was genuinely a nice little bit of chemistry between the two, and I really hope they don't get rid of him immediately. I hope he has something to do with this episode and that the two have a couple more scenes together at the very least. One of the things I will say, it looks like the Night Stalker is going to have a bigger role in this season than what I was anticipating, but it looks like we're going to see him play out the rest of his days before he gets caught somehow and then he dies in the prison, because I'm pretty sure they said that he died in a prison in American Horror Story Hotel after he was caught. Maybe Mr. Jingles has something to do with that. Maybe the events of this season lead up to him being caught and arrested. And if I had to speculate, it would be because Brooke gets out of jail and they pin all of this on the Night Stalker for whatever reason. And then Margaret even gets pinned, or Mr. Jingles ends up selling the Night Stalker out and becomes more of a devil worshiper than him, or some kind of twist and turn that we can't possibly predict at this point. But I do think we're going to see him get put in jail before the end of this season, so they can kind of set up where American Horror Story Hotel introduced him in the first place.
Take a picture, it'll last longer.
So one of the reasons I like this scene is that Montana is just living it up on the camp. I mean, as she said at the end of last night's episode, they're going to be gods here. I mean, they can do whatever they want. They can have as much fun as they want, and they can just let their inner demons out and run free, rampant, and wild for the rest of their lives, because for whatever reason, Camp Redwood, or at least the woods of Camp Redwood, act as kind of a hell beacon the same way that Murder House did in season 1. So it doesn't look like they can leave, and it doesn't look like there's any real consequences to what they're doing. And that's definitely warping the minds of some of the more free-minded people that we've been following ever since the beginning of this season.
Being bad feels really good.
And while I will say it's nice to have Cody Fern and Billy Lord back in action and being kind of murderous ghosts at this point, because as I keep saying, you need to have funny moments. There's a nice little funny moment at the very end of this trailer, which I'll show in just a bit. But it makes me wonder, are we going to get Trevor back? Because he wasn't killed outside of one of those buildings. And I don't know why it's different for people who die in the buildings versus people who die outside of the buildings. And maybe they're going to explain that. But based on what we've seen thus far with Xavier and Montana coming back, as well as Jonas, it doesn't really look like Trevor's going to be coming back anytime soon. and that's kind of a little bit of a disappointment.
You can't kill every single person that wanders through here.
And as I said in my review for last night's episode, along with the theory video that kind of went with it, I thought that they were going to be bringing back Ray at some point. I didn't think he was going to come back in episode 5, and I thought that if they were going to bring him back, they were going to do their best to kind of redeem his character. We saw a little bit of that in last night's episode, and it looks like we're going to see a little bit more of that as the season goes by, because they're going to be using Xavier and Montana as the murderous ghost, kind of free will id type of characters who can do whatever they want with the newfound power that they have. At the same time, they're going to be enjoying all of things that they can do on the campgrounds. And it looks like Gus is going to try to be the voice of reason, but because they can't kill each other, they're going to have to learn to live with each other, which would really allow next week's episode to have a little bit more of a layup concept where you have these characters just having fun and doing everything that American Horror Story's world allows them to do. I don't remember us ever really having an episode, besides maybe the episode in Hotel where they did introduce the Night Stalker, where you got to just see all these ghosts just having fun, when a lot of it was really all for laughs and trying to focus on all of the fun things that you can do in this world. I really hope that's what they do in this episode. But I also believe because Gus is going to be the moral center of all these characters, he's going to be exploring this campground, and he might even find something that binds them there. And as I said at the very beginning of this video, something that connects not only American Horror Story 1984 to Hotel and Coven and Murder House, as all of these are really connected because of the Night Stalker, but all the other seasons, and really starting to plant the seeds for what season 10 is going to be about, and how all of these different narratives kind of come together as the series potentially reaches its end in season 10. But that's just my theory on Ray's character during next week's episode, as well as the rest of the season.
Yes, I can.
Again.
And again, classic AHS humor. I love it. Guys, tell me what you think about this in the comment section below. Do you think any of my theories are right? What do you think is going to happen in next week's episode? Are you excited that this is the 100th episode of the entire series? And do you think they're going to start connecting all of the different seasons of American Horror Story in this episode because it is the 100th episode of the series? Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. It's been real.